Hey, this is Mark, and today I've got a Mac Mini that has uh, one less fan connector than it normally should. Um, so this is actually a fairly common problem here. People, I guess, probably trying to upgrade their hard drive, maybe trying to clean out their fan. They pull that connector right off the board, and normally a couple of pads come with it. So in this case, we can see we have a pad here that's gone and a pad here that's gone. Um, so is this pad important? Do I need to put a jumper there? Well, let's look at a similar connector. So here we have a MacBook board with the exact same kind of fan connector. We've got 4 pins along the back and 2 grounded anchor points that are not for any kind of electrical connection. So looking back at our missing pads board, obviously these are the 4 that are along the back, and then we have the 2 that are in the front that are not electrically relevant. So I can quickly confirm that just by saying, okay, so let me find some ground. I'll use this post over here, and we got ground. That's a ground. And then this one's also ground. So yeah, these 2 guys could be completely gone, and I wouldn't care at all. The only thing that they're really actually useful for is helping to keep the connector on the board. So, without that anchor, it's already clearly a weak connector because it comes off all the time. But without this anchor, it's going to be even weaker. So my solution to that is to put down a little bit of epoxy on the board under the new connector, so that the new connector is essentially just glued to the board, and then of course solder all those 4 points on the back. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start by just prepping these pads in the back. I just want to get those with a nice little pile of leaded solder on them so that they're easier to touch up with my tweezers. And I guess I haven't mentioned this third pad here, or second pad, depending on which way you're counting from. So that's gone, and that actually is going to need a jumper. So I'm going to use my eyeballs, and I'm going to read the board, and I'm going to say, where does that jumper need to go? So looking at where this pad is, I can see that it connected to this via here and continues to go on and around to this end of this capacitor or filter, probably a filter. Looks like it's a filter, yeah. So I could connect a jumper like to this via and have it sticking out, but that's gonna be like a little lump that the new connector is gonna have to sit on top of. So I think it will make more sense to run my jumper from the leg out here and just come down and around and attach to this end of this filter. So that's what we're gonna do. Now, for me to put a connector on, I need to have a connector. And I don't have a Mac Mini to grab one off of, but I do have a lot of old MacBook boards that all have like a couple of connectors that I can use. Let's see, this one's got 2. Any more? Is there another one over here? No, that's 3-pin. So yeah, I mean this board's got at least 2 that I can use. And most of these older MacBook boards are going to have at least 2 of these connectors, so I've harvested quite a few. Now, when you're harvesting these connectors, it is possible to melt up that plastic, and you really don't want to do that if you can avoid it. So I will use some bottom heat. All right. Let's see if I can get my microscope to see that. All right. So I'm going to put a little bit of flux. It's not absolutely necessary, but it does help with gauging where your hot air is pointing from the bottom. And it also, to a limited extent, helps distribute heat. So, yeah. Oh, shit. All right. I'm gonna set my hot air pretty high. I'm gonna set it at like 450. Because I don't care about this board at all. The only use this board is to me is, the connectors I can pull off of it. Ugh. It's always annoying how long it takes to get these off with bottom heat. Like, it's nice getting them off and, not having even slightly melted plastic, but nobody got time to sit around here like this all day. All right, we're gonna rearrange things a little bit. Part of the problem here is I can't really get a good angle on it with my hot air and have the microscope on it at the same time. Come on, get hot enough. All right, I'm taking the tip off my hot air. There we go. Turn that airflow all the way up. Now, come on, get hot, board. Woo! Oh, that was a cap from the other side of the board. All right, there we go. Finally. And poor little busted cap from the other side of the board. He was not happy about that heat. All right. What did I do with my connector? Get everything rearranged. probably could have just taken that connector off before I started recording, but I thought about it and I was like, nah, I'll show the whole process. See just how the sausage is made. Oh. Uh-oh. That's not great. All right. Did not get onto the iMac, but I also had some two-part epoxy, which I'm going to use to glue this thing down, sitting over here waiting to be mixed. And something has gotten into it and moved some of it around, and I'm not sure what. So now there's something over here at my workstation that has epoxy on it that probably shouldn't. All right. All right. Let's just get this job done. Worry about that later. Now, I want to go ahead and get the little bit of solder that's still on these legs off. And then we'll clean the flux off of it because I want to actually stick this down to the board with epoxy, so I need it to be cleaned off, no flux. All right. There we go. Now I need some more epoxy. So I'm just using this like standard, 5-minute hardware store epoxy. Nothing special. Just needs to be something that cures relatively quickly and stays hard for a long time. All right. We will mix this epoxy up real quick. Just need a little bit of it. This stuff is really useful. Like, if you need any kind of glue around your shop, I highly recommend the hardware store 5-minute 2-part epoxy. The best thing about it is if you need it to come off, if you heat things up, it really softens up. So, if you ever do need to rework an area that you've used it on, it's not, impossible to do. All right, that's gonna work. Now, the only thing left to do is solder our feet and run our jumper. which that should be pretty easy. Now, I said I wasn't going to solder this ground one, but I'm going to do it. Maybe I'm going to do it. Maybe it's too covered with epoxy to get enough flux in there to really get things flowing. Or maybe because it's ground, I'm just not going to be able to deliver enough heat. Oop. Or maybe I'll get it soldered, kind of. Good enough. Once that epoxy cures, there's that thing's going to be on there. All right. Getting lots of cotton fibers up in your epoxy. Don't worry, guys. I'm total professional here. Trust me. It's all gonna be fine. It's gonna work out in the end. All right. Now we got to do our jumper. Whoops. Gotta be a little more gentle with that wire. Can't pinch it too tight. Okay, jumper in place. We will just make sure we have continuity all the way through from the pin in the connector to our filter. And we do. And just for shits and giggles, let's see if we get diode mode reading. I don't know that we're supposed to get a diode mode reading on this guy. Yeah, he's soldered onto that pad good. All right, so now I need to do a little bit of cleanup. And I do want to be kind of careful using the solvent for cleaning up the flux. I want to be kind of careful doing that around the epoxy and try to avoid the epoxy as much as possible, because that epoxy is very, very susceptible to the solvent I'm using, which is acetone. All right. All right, looks pretty good. We are almost done. Just pick out these stray fibers. Make it look pretty. In case one of you guys ends up with this in front of you and looks at it through a microscope, and this way you won't be able to be like, oh, that's definitely Mark's work. There's a bunch of cotton fibers in it. That's got to be Mark's work. And get a little bit of flux that's in the connector out. A little bit left behind isn't going to hurt anything. Okay, last thing I'm going to do now is use some of the green UV curable solder mask to tack down my jumper, and also to kind of go just around the edges of the connector, just to help, you know, another type of bonding to help keep that thing on there the next time this guy connects and disconnects it. So I want my coating of the green stuff to be relatively thin, because if you don't do a thin coating, you'll cure the outside of it and make it opaque, so that then the the inside part stays liquid, because now everything is opaque and the UV light can't get down into the inside of it. So you end up with like this wet bottom part with like a hard shell over the top of it. All right, let's get you over here. Come on. I'm just kind of spreading it outward to help just make it a thinner layer. All right, I am happy with that. So we'll throw our light on there. And this is pretty much ready to go. Not much more I can do for this video. So yeah, that probably took a lot longer than it needed to. Thanks for sticking with me till the end. Thanks for watching.